Okay, so we'll revisit the issue of KZN because it's that important, the KZN floods. We'll do that just now. What's also important is what's been going on in the Ukraine, and it's ongoing. I see Joe Biden, the American president, now describing the Russian attack on the Ukraine as a genocide, the first time he's used that particular phrase. But I want to bring it back closer to home and talk about an interesting Twitter conversation, and I certainly follow Twitter extensively, from the ambassador, Ukraine's ambassador to South Africa, and that's Ambassador Abravitova. On the one hand, Clayson Moniela, the spokesperson for our international relations or foreign affairs department, the DIRCO, that's Clayson Moniela, and then something that happened thereafter. So I thought, let's get it from Ambassador Abravitova about what provoked the first tweet and what happened next. So, Ambassador Abravitova, thank you for your time and thanks for joining me.
Good morning, Ashraf. It's good to join you again. And thank you for having me. First of all, my condolences to all the victims. All what is happening in KwaZulu-Natal is very close to our heart, and we are with the people who are affected with all our hearts. Thank you for still keeping in focus the Russian aggression in Ukraine. It is also still very painful and getting even more painful. Yes, it is in the focus of all the world media and, of course, in the focus of media in South Africa, because as we see, the neutral position of any country doesn't mean indifference. It means any way that you are following the events, you are feeling for those people who are suffering, who are affected by this terrible war of Russia and Ukraine.
I think good point. Let's then talk about specifically around, you put out a tweet that was backed up by a video effectively addressing DIRCO, our international relations department, directly. Now, we do know, before you even say what you said, that up to now, when it's come to voting in the United Nations, South Africa's stance has been neutral, right? As in neutral and negotiation, right? Now, in the video that you put out, what did you say? And then you got a response from Clayson Moniela.
Well, first of all, I want to make a point that I never met with Mr. Moniela, and if he would want to meet with me, I always would make myself available and would organize this meeting. The reason I put my tweet was the appeal to have those meetings with the government representatives that we've been requesting since the beginning of the year, starting from that time when Russia started to build up of military presence on the borders of Ukraine, where we started to requesting meetings with the departments. For our listeners, I want to make it very clear that according to the diplomatic protocol, the embassy, in order to get a meeting with any minister or deputy minister within the government, has to address DIRCO officially. We cannot request the meeting with the Minister of Transport or Minister of Defense or Minister of Home Affairs directly. We can do it only through DIRCO.
Is that because you're an embassy? Is that because you're an embassy? Okay, I got that, right. Okay, so your tweet was what? To highlight what?
To highlight that we are desperately seeking for the meetings with those ministers and government representatives with whom we requested officially the meetings. And let me put an example. Home Affairs. It is crucial and urgent to meet because our refugees are coming to South Africa. Refugees or just Ukrainians who are traveling to stay and be safe with their friends or relatives in South Africa. And we need to agree what kind of regulations can be. We had some changes in our legislation regarding the documents of Ukrainians who are traveling, because all the facilities for passports were destroyed. So we had to take extraordinary measures that are not accepted yet by South African government. That means that people sometimes are traveling 17, 20 hours from Ukraine, I mean, not from Ukraine, from any European country to South Africa, and they are getting returned because
Okay,
their
I get that.
documents are not responding
All right,
to the rules of South Africa. So you see,
all
these
right.
are very technical issues.
I think your explanation makes a lot of sense why you need to engage with the various touch points, if I can call it that, within South Africa. Now, once you put out the video, and the hashtag was talk to me, suggesting that they're not talking to you. Clayson Moniela, as you know, the spokesperson, then replied saying, Ambassador, you know this is wrong and undiplomatic. You met Derco diplomats on the 3rd of March, number one. Number two, the head of Europe branch several times. And number three, the president's international relations advisor as well. And then said DM Alvin Puertas, we've made a long request for President Ramaphosa to speak to your president and you're not responding. Now, explain what happened there. I mean, he's rebutting everything you just said.
I think that he didn't have information when he was answering my tweet regarding the notes that we've sent regarding the meetings with the ministers. So he didn't ask me what I meant by this particular tweet and what made me to put it, but he decided to fight with me on Twitter, which I think is not diplomatic. I'm using the all the means to talk and to continue the dialogue between Ukraine and South Africa. What is very important for us is to see what we are going to do, how we are going to build our relations after the war is finished. The Embassy of Ukraine is responsible for 10 countries here in the region. With some of the ministers, I am in touch on phone and on WhatsApp. With some of the DIRCO representatives, I am in touch on the phone and on WhatsApp. With those particular representatives with whom Mr. Clayson Moniela mentioned, we were dealing with evacuation of South African citizens. And I did inform about this the new DG of DIRCO, Mr. Dangor.
Because subsequently you met him after that, right? Yeah. So subsequent to those tweets, I saw your third tweet, the follow up with a picture of yourself and yes, the newly appointed Director General of Derco Zane Dangor. So how did that meeting come about, and what came out of that meeting?
Well, it was the first meeting after Mr. Dangor was appointed as a DG. We did discuss all the issues of bilateral relations. I informed DG about the situation in Ukraine, about the humanitarian crisis that we are undergoing, about the losses, about the atrocities that are happening. We did discuss the proposed telephone call between the presidents. And of course, we were talking about further meetings that I did request with government representatives. And we are now preparing the online meeting with the Department of Home Affairs on the
and just for me to understand the sequence of events here, am I right in saying your meeting with the DG Zane Dangor happened after your tweets with Clayson Moniela? Is that correct?
No, I would not put it this way. Mr. Dangor is a new appointed DG. As soon as the meeting with all the representatives of ambassadors abroad of South Africa was finished, he made his time immediately to meet with me. It was the initiative of DIRCO, which I'm really appreciating, but the tweet was not about this. As I already
but I'm trying to understand the sequence so we get a picture. Are you saying, no, just hear me, Ambassador, what I'm asking, I'm just trying to get a picture of it, is did you meet Zane Dangor before those tweets or after those tweets?
Yeah, it was after the tweets, yes. But I think it's a coincidence. I mean,
all right, I got that.
I believe it would happen anyway. I
Okay.
don't want you to feel that the tweet provoked the meeting with Denver. I didn't have this feeling during the meeting, and the meeting was very constructive and positive. And during the meeting, we agreed that the very first important in the row meetings with the representatives of government will be facilitated. And we're expecting now for the first one to happen soon, which is the Home Affairs
Okay,
meeting.
got that. So I think thanks for clearing that up. So according to you, the tweet didn't provoke the meeting. The meeting happened anyway. But I do take it that your meeting must have discussed the tweet, because it wasn't just a tweet is not a tweet. The tweet is a text embodiment of a relationship between, in this case, Ukraine's ambassador and the spokesperson for Zendengo's very own organization.
It was an appeal from my side, being a representative of Ukraine, representative of my government and of my president, to have a dialogue. It was. It was not discussed during the meeting, because I believe in the country of freedom of speech and democracy. It's nothing wrong with the tweet of the ambassadors calling to talk.
Okay, got that. What then? Just lastly, you do know, right, that at this point in time, South Africa, as late as a couple of days ago, in fact, once again voted, or rather abstained from voting on on one of those human rights commissions to effectively remove Russia from that from the UN Human Rights Commission. Naledi Pandor, the minister, right, and a highly respected minister over years, right, has made the point that abstaining doesn't mean that South Africa supports the position of Russia. In fact, their tactic of abstention is as a way of being this negotiating broker between the different countries, because historically South Africa has had a good relationship with Russia. Now, do you buy into that version?
I believe that the minister is very professional and following the main direction of the diplomacy of South Africa. I believe that the approach is to save the corridor for discussions and dialogue with both sides. So I do understand it, and this is the way how I am reporting and explaining this back to my capital. We all understand that we cannot expect the same reaction from every country in the world, because really the relations and the positions of different countries with Russia absolutely different. Being the member of BRICS, South Africa is trying to keep the corridor of dialogue with Russia, and we do understand this. So I'm not accusing South African government in taking this position. But
Okay,
it's
so
position that
do you concede at this point in time that and the things may change, but right now South Africa's position, considering all the points you mentioned above, is the correct stance for now, by abstaining but being a broker negotiating, as opposed to voting against the Russians and therefore removing their influence with the Russians?
You see, if you are sitting on the position of ambassador of the country where those atrocities are happening, the only things that you want to see is the accusation and condemnation of what Russia is doing. And I don't think that these things cannot be in parallel. The neutral position, as I started my discussion with you, doesn't mean indifference. And even in your own family, if your father or your child committed a crime, you call it a crime. I think the constructive position would be to call the things by the name.
Okay, got that. Well, I'll tell you what, that story will run. You know that. And I'm sure if there are further developments, we will certainly talk to you, Ambassador Abravitova. But I'm also going to rely on you tweeting, because I think you do that very well. And it's an important way of communicating, I think, with the broader society. And I will certainly follow you on that issue. So further thoughts on our conversation, if you feel like tweeting about it, tag me. I will definitely share that as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
There we are. Lots to learn from that conversation, don't you know? Don't you think so? And that's really the essence of what we're trying to do here at Salam Media, trying to get the story, beyond the story. Well, the story beyond the story has got many legs, and the story around the issue of KZN, sadly, the flooding definitely has many legs, and we need to cover all of that. We'll get another eyewitness account right after this.